Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshvari Mati ki jai. We'll continue on with chapter 51 from the Devi Bhagavatam, retold by Ramesh Menon. Janamejaya said, Muni, tell me how the Devi returned to the world, for we know she did. Vedavyasa said, Shiva ranged the earth dementedly with Sati's ashes and her bones. Wherever he rested, he began to meditate, slowly mastering his grief by meditation. But all the worlds were distraught, as if they had lost their inmost grace. All creatures, gods, demons, men, beasts, and birds were as if their hearts had run dry, for joy had left them. Strange anxiety and indifference had its way with them. Macabre diseases of body and spirit stalked heaven and earth, and creation was full of unease. Misfortune seemed to be the pivot around which life revolved, and the planets of fortune were retrograde in their orbits. It was at this time that a great asura, a demon of awesome power, obtained a boon of invincibility from Brahma and began to rule the worlds. His name was Taraka, and the boon he had was that no one except a son of Shiva himself could kill him. Of course, was also immeasurably strong. Taraka collected a huge army of asuras and rakshasas. He vanquished Indra's devas and assumed sovereignty over the three worlds. After Sati's death, there was small chance of Shiva taking a wife or having a son, and the asura was secure in his vast power, for no army of heaven or earth could vanquish him. Tarak cast the devas out of heaven and sat upon Indra's throne. His chosen demons ruled the earth, fire, sea, and air, and they had power over the sun and moon and the planets. Creation was mantled in darkness, and evil held sway over the hearts and lives of all the beings. The devas lost their power, their luster, and hid from the hunting demons in deep jungles, in the hearts of deserts, and in lowly mountain caves. Finally, when it dawned on them that they had indeed become like beggars in creation, Indra's people went to Vaikuntha to see Blue Vishnu, who is always their savior. In tears, his vanity quite crushed, Indra prostrated himself before Narayana and said, Lord, save us from Tarkasura, only you can. Vishnu said, it is the Devi Bhagavati who can help you. When a mother scolds her children, it never means she has stopped loving them. She only does it for their own good, so their carelessness may not lead them into deeper trouble. Go pray to the Devi. She will deliver you from Taraka. So the Devas went to the Himalayas and performed a fervid tapasya, fueled by their plight. They performed the Purashcharana karma, repeating the goddess's sacred names and making burnt offerings to her. The Devas lost themselves in that worship. Years passed thus, and the gods of light grew wan and wasted from their austerities, for they purified themselves with harsh rigors. Then one day, the 9th the month of Chaitra, a Friday, the Devi appeared before the prayerful devas on the mountain. Her luster was that of a lock of suns, and it seemed the mountains had been subsumed into a higher realm, into the hearts of all the light in the universe. The Vedas were there, hymning her, and the mass of flame she appeared in the midst of was ubiquitous. There was nothing in the three worlds, in all the galaxies, that it did not engulf. She was a blinding light, and the Devas shut their eyes, for they could not bear her effulgence. But when they looked again, they saw she, the power Shakti, had turned herself into an incomparable young woman, so exquisite that beauty began with her. Her youth was just blooming, her breasts like lotus buds. She had golden ornaments on her hands and arms and a splendid necklace set with unworldly gems around her throat, casting its glow across the pale mountains like an enchanted sun. Her hair was luminous and hung down to her ankles. She wore delicate, tinkling waistlet and anklets above her fine, dark feet. Her mouth was perfect, tinted scarlet with the beetle she chewed. She bore the moon in a crescent on her forehead. Her eyebrows were long and arched, and her eyes were reddish like the crimson lotus. Her teeth were like flowering buds of kunda. She was a string of pearls as well, rounded. She wore a string of pearls as well round her fluted throat, and they glowed like small moons on her head. She wore a coronet worked again with matchless jewels. She wore beautiful flowers in her hair and had beautiful Kashmiri kumkum teardrops. She carried a shining gold in one hand and a brilliant noose in the other, the symbols of her sovereignty over time. Her other two hands were formed in the mudra of granting boons and deliverance from fear. Her eyes were like soft stars upon her face. The third one slumbered on her brow. She wore a crimson silk garment, and she was as bright as the flowers of the Darima tree. Stormed by her grace, the Devas were speechless before her. Then slowly, as she stood smiling mysteriously at them, they began to chant the mantras that worship her, to sing her many names in ecstasy. She said to them so gently, "Tell me, Devas, what ails you that you worship me so fervently? Ask me for any boon, for I am a tree from which my bhaktas can have any fruit they like." Swept by a gale of joy, the Devi said, "Mother of the world, save us from the terror of Taraka. The Asuras have... That demon has a boon that only a son born to Shiva can kill him. But, O Deva, how will Shiva have a son when he has no wife? We fear he will never take a wife unto himself after Sati asked herself. All the worlds are ruled by fear and despair, for Shiva is grief-stricken. Mahamaya Parashakti, we beg you, incarnate yourself again and be Shiva's wife, or Tarakasura will destroy the worlds. And Mother, lastly, grant that we Devas always be devoted to your lotus feet." And the Devi said, "My Shakti shall incarnate as the mountain's daughter, and she shall be Shiva's wife, and they will have a son who will rid you of this demon. And I bless you, Devas, you will always have bhakti in your hearts, and my grace will be upon you and yours." Smiling now, she added, "Not only your tapasya brings you this boon, Himalaya has been worshiping me, and I shall come as his daughter." At which the Lord of the mountains, the mighty spirit of the Himalayas, stood embodied upon his loftiest peaks, a great white figure, and tears flowing down his craggy face, said, "Mother, no boon in all the worlds can be higher than this one you have blessed me with. I shall be renowned across the universe now that the creatrix of all things incarnated herself as Himavan's daughter. Who can be as fortunate as he whose child is the one in whose belly all the millions of Brahmanas exist? Ah, peerless fortune, my sires shall find the highest swargas for themselves after this fortune of fortunes. But I beg you, Mahadevi, Parameshwari, enlighten me now that vanity and darkness leave my heart, and I become worthy of this boon of boons you have granted me," said the august Lord of the mountains, said Vedavyasa Muni to King Janamejaya. Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshwari Mata ki jai, Bole Baba Ki Jai.